Okay. Namaste. Welcome to Mimamsa. My name is Manasa Manjunath. Today we are talking about the boys' locker room Instagram group that was recently in the news and the Snapchat group that came out too. So, what we want to talk about today is the issues, are the issues surrounding this topic. Now, for me, the most important issues in this topic are privacy, consent, feminism, and the boys will be boys attitude, and what is behind this entire situation that we are in today. Um, so, joining me today is my friend Arjun. Welcome to the podcast, Arjun. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hello, Mani. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. I think this is a very important conversation to have. As a society, I think we talk a little too, or I don't think we talk at all about sex and about mutual respect and about boys and girls and equality in our society. And I feel this is a conversation we should have. I think it's also important here for me to tell that neither of us are experts. We're both mechanical engineers by profession. But I think it's even more important for very ordinary, regular folk like us to have this conversation because, I mean, come on, society is made up of common folk like us. So, to start off the conversation, I would like to give a little bit of the background for people who do not know what I'm talking about. So a couple of weeks ago, in the news, it came out that there was this boys' locker room Instagram group, and that there were photos being shared on this group of girls whom these boys knew, nude pictures, and there were a lot of lewd comments about these pictures and about these girls. And these are boys 16 17 year olds, and the girls obviously also the same age or even below. And after this story broke out, there was another story about a Snapchat group where there were comments about gang raping a girl. It then came out that one of the people in the group who instigated this chat on or this instigated this topic of gang rape was actually this person called Siddharth, who's actually a girl who was faking being a boy because she wanted to test her boyfriend or whatever that was about. Then the third thing that is also important that has now a little bit died down between these two issues is a Delhi boy who committed suicide because he was being harassed online by some of the girls in his school or some of the girls he knew who said that he had spoken ill about them or that he was too was involved in this entire controversy, and he eventually committed suicide. So these are the three incidents. If you didn't know, then now I've brought you up to date. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is let's acknowledge one thing. Let's not start off with denial. I think girls or women or boys and men or men, everybody checks out the opposite sex, right? You look at girls or boys and you talk about how they look. You talk about their body. It is normal. Um, but the thing in this incident is where do you draw the line? Like, where does it go from being, yeah, it's okay, that guy is good looking, he has a good body, or that girl is good looking, she has a good body, to comments about rape? There is a, for me, there is a world of a difference between the two. For me, it first of all starts off with acknowledging that one side exists, but how do you stop it from going to the extreme? What do you want to say about that?
Well, I think for me, where the line is drawn is if I want to say something good about a girl, if I want to flirt with a girl or something, what I say or how I approach her um, should be the same as how I would expect anybody else approaching my sister or some of my female colleagues, and what would be a good sort of line that I think is a good line. So whatever is acceptable to you as a brother or somebody you take care of, if somebody is hitting on a person from your family, whatever is acceptable to you, that's what is acceptable to me, and that's where I draw a line. I mean, over here, when I go to my local pubs, I mean, there are a lot of young women who work over there. They're pretty much in the early 20s, pretty good looking. And, every night there are people who come in there, try to hit on these girls, and it's most of the times it's playful, right? Even we do it, we go out, we see a good girl, sitting, a beautiful girl sitting somewhere, you try to get into a conversation with her. But once in a while, you do get, characters who come in. And there was this incident that happened a couple of months ago after I came back from India. Um, I was sitting at the bar, and this guy walks in. He orders a beer, and she turns around. I mean, she's a pretty good-looking girl. I'm not going to make you feel uncomfortable as to what comments he passed on, but he made one of the most disgusting comments, and the girl could hear it. He was talking to me, but the girl could hear it. And when you turn around, or when she turned around, she had that look in her eye, and I felt so disgusted by it. Just shattered her entire confidence. So I would say don't be perverse. Try to be try to be casual. You draw a line, as I said. Um, you treat you try to hit on a girl the same way as what is acceptable to you as a brother. What is acceptable for you to see. When somebody tries to hit on somebody of your own family, from your own family.
I want to jump in on that, right? For me, it's not, it's, I kind of have a problem with this because a lot of times when this conversation starts, then everybody's like, oh, think about your own mother. Would you be okay with this, with your own mom being spoken to like this, or your own sister? But for me, it's also like, would you as a person like to be spoken to like this? It's not just because she's somebody else's mother or sister, or if it could be your mother and sister, it is a person, right? Like for me, if I'm going to be hit, I mean, if I'm going to hit on somebody, or if I want somebody to hit on me, it also matters how, like you said, but not just in a familial way or people we know, because I feel this becomes problematic when you say, yeah, let's only keep it within, think about those we know or those we relate to. I think it's also important to just acknowledge that it is a person, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the basic. I mean, whenever it doesn't matter. I mean, that's what your upbringing tells you. It doesn't matter. I'm placing this fact based on the assumption that everybody has a decent upbringing. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're talking to a girl or a boy or a kid. The first basic family value, or the first basic thing that any person should learn, is how to treat other human beings. And then, I mean, talking about sex, or doing anything else socially, that's one level up. The first thing is how to treat each other as human beings. So you're right. The first thing is treating each other as human beings. That should be the first value.
Yeah, because for me, this, even when you go through social media where this topic is being spoken about, then very quickly the conversation becomes, would you do it if I mean, would you like it if someone spoke like this about your sister? uh, and this is how a lot of people do speak. A lot of guys do tell, oh, what if it's your sister, what if it's your mother? The problem is you're not recognizing this girl as a person herself. You're always recognizing as like related to somebody, and I think that is where the problem begins. Because by saying someone's sister or someone's mother or someone's whoever, you're for me, it's kind of like you're making this person not to be a, you're kind of dehumanizing them, right? You're treating them like property.
Yep.
So for
Yep.
me, I think this
So
conversation starts there.
yeah, definitely. I think again, as I said, I would draw the line. We talked about drawing the line. That's where I would draw the line, as far as to how lewd you can get, in terms of how flirty you can get, how hands on you can get with the person from opposite sex when you meet them for the first time, right? But even before you do all that, I mean, one of the main groundwork as a character building is, you should know how to treat other people as human beings. That I think is the first basic step, and that's where you start. There's no question about it.
Yeah. So I think what we can say is ground rule. women are people too. I think this is the first thing all
Of
guys,
course.
men need to acknowledge, and they need to speak about this. No more talk of someone's sister, someone's mother. No, she is a person too, and you wouldn't like it if somebody spoke about you this way. So I think that is the ground premise, right? Now let's come to the second thing that is also again very often used in our society. Boys will be boys, like लड़के हैं बात करेंगे और लड़के
Well,
हैं.
that's really our the gift of our patriarchal society, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's whatever the boy child does is good, and whatever the girl child does is bad. And I think it got famous back in 2012 when a famous politician actually said that "ladke to ladke hote hain" in
Mhm.
Uttar Pradesh. So that definitely has to change. I don't see at the moment. There is some awareness being created, I think, within the society as to between a girl child and a boy child and all that, and especially in India, there's been a lot of work that's been done in the last 50 years or 30 years where they've tried to get rid of this patriarchy, but money, unfortunately, I think the way the human civilization has evolved in the last 2000 years, patriarchy has been a part of it, and we have to accept it first of all, and then we have to find ways of um, trying to correct it. Like even like right now, I'm sitting in supposedly the free world, and the two presidential candidates at the moment, both of them have a sexual harassment case. So so even in the free world, it's there is still a lot of misogyny. There is a lot of patriarchy, and the incident that I just described. Women are supposed to be free here and independent and all that stuff, but just one comment. I mean, it's so easy for a man to come in and make a comment and just destroy the whole self confidence of I think a pretty intelligent girl as well. She works for her survival. She's independent. So yeah, that definitely needs to be addressed. Boys will be boys is not a not an argument in 2020. I'm sorry. It's people definitely need to be aware of that.
Yeah, so what you said is very important, right? This patriarchy, it's a part of our culture, it's part of our civilization, and it's been a part of our civilization for 2000 years now, which means that you have to work so much harder to change this entire mindset. And I think the fact that, like you said, the two presidential candidates in the USA, that both of them have sexual harassment cases against them, just shows how mainstream this entire situation is, right? That it is completely normal to sexually assault somebody, and then sometimes even to brag about it, like in the case of the current president of the United States. And when we talk about this being a part of civilization, when we talk about changing this patriarchal mindset, I think we have to also go into then the role of media in this entire thing, right? Where does TV, where does Bollywood, and where does even for that matter the music industry, the entire popular media, the entire popular culture that we have today, also in fact makes it very normal to uh, I don't know, sexually assault a girl or a woman, or there are so many songs which mainstream it, right? Like this where consent isn't really important. इनका
Yeah.
इकरार होता है. Like,
Well, I I have I have a lot of thoughts about this kind of stuff. I stopped watching any movie, I mean, since I was 12, 13 years old. So they don't influence me a lot. But um, how I would put it is like right now, in the Indian context at least, I know we are in the middle of a pandemic and the economy is down and all that, but the truth of the matter is that in the last 30 years, India has seen a tremendous growth in terms of economy. A lot of low middle class people have moved into like upper middle class. A lot of rich people have gotten richer, and what it has done is It's brought in a lot of new things into our culture, into our Indian mainstream. And then there are certain pockets within India. I mean, we are in southern part of India, and we've pretty much, I would say, seen a slow growth in our economy. We didn't get rich overnight, but the places where you see such stories, right? Places like Noida or Gurgaon or Delhi, or in some remote parts in Telangana or Andhra Pradesh, there, the boost in economy was probably overnight. I mean, they sold their land and they became rich overnight. And the influx of outside influences, you're getting new pubs, new bars, and new sort of shopping malls, which they never thought of before or never knew about it. So now it's like, the dog has got the bone, and what do they do with it? And with all this influence and with all this idea of being modern and being, I would say, westernized, there is a clash of ideologies in at least in the Indian context. I think there is a clash of ideologies. There is a conservative class and there is a more sort of liberal class, and in the middle of all this, the young generation right now, or the people in essence, they've lost their identity. So this manifests itself in the kind of social media that we see, in the kind of movies that we see. I mean, some of these film stars who actually dance to these item songs or play these roles, they are supposed to be the feminist icons of India, which is laughable, right? So so uh, all this, because of the confused state of mind, because we don't know who we are actually. I mean, if you go and ask a 20-year-old kid today, how does he define himself? Or if you ask a 20-year-old girl, what do you think? They don't have an answer. They don't know whether they should be, worshiping, some ideology in United States, or some ideology in India, Gaurakshaks and all that kind of stuff, or the liberals or communists. So they really are lost. And until this identity problem is fixed, amongst the youth, amongst like just people in general, like in all walks of life, until we know who we are, I think this clash is still going to be on. And you're right. Media, social media, movies and songs and news and everything is trying to be slightly westernized, slightly desi, and everything is amalgam, and that's what you end up with. You end up with no morality whatsoever at the end of it.
Yeah, because you have a complete normalization of this kind of attitude, right? Even in uh, if you have consent as, I mean, where consent doesn't matter, or when you see a girl who says yes, this is most of our movies, right? Like all our romance rom-coms are basically like this: the girl says no, the guy won't listen, he keeps going after her, and it's like
Well,
you try hard enough, then eventually she'll say yes.
yeah, well, and also the some of the lyrics to the songs, so-called popular songs, if you listen to it carefully, those are some of the most perverse things that you would ever hear. I mean, it's literally like, they're singing about how he's going to sexually harass her
Yeah.
in the song. So people have got to know that. And also, what happens is, when a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old, when he's at that age, when puberty hits and when he's trying to do stupid stuff, um, and without any education or any sort of a roadmap set out for him, his first or her first exposure to the adult world would be probably movies, songs, what they see on social media, and that's what they try to copy. So if there is a new item song which is popular, then the boys would expect the girls to behave like that. Girls would expect to dress up like that, dance like that. So that it plays a huge role, and again, it's a morality issue, and people have to. I think the onus is on a lot of responsible um, young people who should first of all try to stop watching such movies or promote such movies. It's the onus is also on these producers who make. I mean, you can understand their difficulty as well. I mean, the sex sells,
Yeah.
so that's yeah. So, but as from a morality point of view, I think if they can, if at all, try to reduce or try to come up with a more original sort of content which everybody can enjoy. I think that would be a start. But until that identity crisis is settled down, and until the we have some sort of a common morality laws established within our family systems and within our society, I think we should uh, well, stopping the movies a solution. Well, no, I don't think stopping movies is a solution. I don't think so. I think movies are a platform where, for a lot of people, it's an escape. But what we should stop doing is doing the same repetitive stuff. Where, I mean, in Bollywood, if you see one movie, you've seen it all, right? It's the same thing. A guy is chasing a girl, and the girl doesn't say yes at the first time. Then he thinks about how he's going to sexually harass her, and then they're married and have to live happily ever after. So, um, no, I don't think stopping movies is a solution. What could be is we could have a more a more sort of a diverse kind of movies with original storytelling. Um, what role do parents play in this? Well,
Um, let's before you continue to the next question, I want to hold on to this. You spoke about originality and having better content. I think with this whole sex sells, what these producers or these movie makers do is appeal to the lowest common denominator, right? Like,
well, yeah. I mean, okay. Go on. I'm sorry.
no, I mean, go on. That was my point.
Yeah, I mean the lowest. I mean, yeah, you're right. Lowest common denominator. But if you see some of the French movies, right? French movies are filled with nudity, and it's filled with. I mean, a lot more perverse storytelling than the Indian or the Bollywood kind of movies. But even if they are showcasing that, you have an underlying. I mean, there is a story to tell. There is a
Mhm.
different story. There is a more artistic approach to stuff. And I mean, even there, I guess sex sells, but in a different manner. You also have storytelling in that. But at least in an Indian context, I would say that people should start coming up with a more sort of original content. At least I would love to go to the movies and watch a nice Hindi movie or a nice Kannada movie one of these days. But unfortunately, uh, I can't. I mean, it's really bad right at the moment. I don't want to. Well, just by looking at the trailers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, right? You've seen one, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next question that's come up that you were already going to. What role do parents play in this? And then there was a follow-up question. Do you think identity issues come up because the parent doesn't pay enough attention to these kids? And I want to bring this other point in here at this point, what you said of a identity issue and b this economic boom that has happened, which means that a lot of these teenagers have access to mobile phones, and with mobile phones and social media you now have a lot more or um, pornographic material is available a lot easier than, for example, when we were kids. Like when we were kids, we didn't have that many channels. A and B, what channels played during the day? You had Cartoon Network. I think when we were still in school, max we had was Nickelodeon, or VH1 had just started. But today, when you have Twitter and you have Instagram and Snapchat, A, you don't know what material these kids have access to, and B, you also don't know what your kids are sharing, right?
Yeah. Well, let me just say, about the identity issue and the parents issue. Well, unfortunately, what's happened right now is like even the parents, they themselves don't know their identity at the moment. I mean, if you go on Snapchat or TikTok and again, that's why I stopped using these social media platforms. I saw a video on TikTok, a 65-year-old man cross-dressing as a village whore and dancing to an item song, trying to pander to an audience which is 2 to 3 times younger to him. I don't even I don't understand that logic. So the parents themselves, I think, at the moment, or a lot of people in India at the moment, are still trying to find that equilibrium between the economy and their values and how they should be juggling with the new values. So unfortunately, what's happened is that the economic boom has overwhelmed people so much that they're still trying to adjust to it. So I mean, parents, I guess I'm not a parent, so I'm not an expert in it. But I guess what parents could do is probably try to um, expose the children to the nicer things in life. Maybe try to expose them to more positive things, more creative things. Maybe acknowledge the fact that the so-called blockbuster movies, or it's not only the movies. I mean, anything which is on social media or anything which is the latest trend, it's just that. It's just a trend. It's not going to earn you a bread in the future. So maybe try to expose them to good books. I mean, try to expose them to the nicer things in life. I suppose. I guess that's what. And to your point, Mani, about social media and the access. I mean, we did have access. I mean, if you like as a kid, if you're in high school, if you wanted to watch an adult movie, there were channels. At least for us boys, we had ways and means to get that. It wasn't a big deal. But I think the social media is not something that we should be handing out to our kids. It's my opinion. I think it's a pretty powerful platform. It is something that it's a platform where you can talk to the world. And just think about it. You're a teenager. You have a million things going in your head. You have a million insecurities because that's the age where you have all your hormones running wild and all that kind of stuff. And then you amplify that on a social media platform, and it reaches to the world. I mean, how absurd is that? And then you have these influencers, you have these social media influencers, um, and whatever they say kind of becomes a trend among the teenagers and among the youth. So I would say, you wouldn't give a pair of scissors to a baby. You wouldn't ask a baby to play with fire. So I think it sh- I think social media, again, I don't know how to control this, but maybe a couple of suggestions would be just like, how you need to write an exam, or get a license to drive a car. Maybe somebody does a mental competence check on you before you, because
Then
it's a serious deal.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I
because it's a
think
serious deal.
if you do that, then a lot of above 18-year-olds also wouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I'm just thinking out loud. I don't know, but and it is kind of a scary thing because we've already seen. I think in the UK there was a supermodel who committed suicide because of online bullying and online shaming. Even I mean, even in our context, whatever we're talking about, that young boy was 14 years old. I mean, a 14-year-old boy committing a suicide, it should be an serious thing to be talked about over here. There was yesterday, I saw a news article about a girl in Gurgaon. So just like how there is a boys locker room, there was a girls locker room, and she just turned 18, I think, and somebody slut shamed her 2 years ago. So in order to get back on them, I mean, she created a own group, and now she's filed a FIR against cyber cell and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, in when we were kids, if somebody somebody was harassing your friend, I mean, your maybe your friend, she might be your sister. The way we used to deal with it is we used to beat respect into them and close the matter there. But now you're giving this platform, you're giving this platform, and you're giving importance. I mean, these kids are not even eligible to vote yet, but yet you're giving them such a big platform to like air their grievances. So I think there should be curbs on social media, at least until they prove themselves as mentally competent to handle it.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like you said, what you said about you wouldn't give a child scissors, right, to run around with. Yeah, it makes complete sense. But somehow you're handing these teenagers who anyway have diverse issues. You're giving them like the tool which is going to aggravate or make worse whatever issues that are already exist. So I'm going to hold on to that, and I want to bring in this aspect that Apurva says that we can't force movies to no to whatever restrictions we have. Ideally, we have to focus on mutual respect. So, this topic of mutual respect, and this is what you spoke about too, where you said that parents have to sit down and expose their children to better things in life. Do you think that maybe, or I mean, for me, I'm sure that this subject is absolutely not spoken about in Indian households. Like I doubt there are parents sitting their kids down and saying, "Look, beta, you should respect women, and women are equal."
No, it's just the family. It's just the family value. I mean, uh, as a man or as a boy, your first behavioral things comes from looking at how your dad treats your mother, or how your dad treats your sister, or how he treats the people around you. So I mean, it's not something that, okay, 12 o'clock Saturday afternoon, I'm going to teach you about how to respect women. That's not how it works. It's something that you got to it should be a part of your upbringing and your family values and your character right from the beginning. Now, a lot of people are lucky enough to have sisters in their own household, so they know, growing up, they know how to deal with women, and they know that there is that mutual respect. In a lot of other households, unfortunately, again, because of our patriarchy and our ancient value systems, I think this doesn't happen. But I think it's not something that you're going to have a talk about when a guy turns 13 or 12 or 10. It needs to be something that needs to be talked about or taught about since he's a kid, as to how to treat others. Not only women, I mean just human beings in general. I've seen people treat others pathetically just because they have more money.
Mhm.
So that shouldn't happen.
So what we are saying is that this is not something that a webinar will fix. This is a um, fundamental mindset change which has to be done at a very grassroots level, and it's not something you can switch on or off, right? So it starts, I think, with as simple as if you're going to tell your daughter don't go out of 6 o'clock, you tell your son also stay home. It's 6. Your sister doesn't go, you don't get to go either. So I think it starts with that, right? And with that, I want to come to another topic, which is
Well, and also I want to emphasize that the education system, the schools have a good role to play in here, because that's where a lot of kids spend their time. And if they can, in some way or the other, encourage activities where they teach mutual respect. I mean, when I was in school, there was a program called Life Skills, where they used to teach you about a lot of things. I mean, it's not life skills as to how to cook and clean and all that kind of stuff, but it was just so they used to give you situations to play out for, and see how people react. Just a natural reaction of a boy or a girl, or whatever, to that situation. And they used to correct you when they thought going in a wrong direction. So schools have a big role to play in here as well.
I agree with you. And this life skills, did you also get like a small book and stuff where you had to like write down stuff? Because I had life skills
Yeah,
at two too. Yeah, I actually find that really good. It was not part. I think at this point we have to tell that this was not part of the school curriculum. This was like a
exactly.
special extra add-on class that they had, right? Yeah, so I
Right.
think very good point that you just brought up. Kids actually do spend most of their time in school, so I think schools have to take the initiative to talk about these things. And at this point, I want to address one other topic. I went to a girls' school, so I can't tell you, like, I can't tell anything. But I do remember when we were in college, the segregation that we had, right? Like, and we were in college, we were studying engineering, we were 18, we could vote, and but we had like professors and lecturers telling us girls and guys can't sit together. Of course, in mechanical, with two girls and 63 boys, and I mean you couldn't do that and nobody bothered with us. But I think we've heard this in our college, and we've heard this in also from other colleges, where you do have this segregation of girls and boys. And I think this is another problem which, I mean, this also exacerbates the issue, right? It makes everything worse by telling इसके साथ मत बैठो.
Yeah, but I would say that in this case I would side with the college in this case, because the kind of diverse students that used to come in. I mean, I personally, I mean, when I was in school, we used to sit together. I mean, boys and girls, right from seventh standard. So I was pretty much comfortable with that. But when you talk about somebody coming in from some rural part, or some an all boys school, for example, or an all girls school in your case, they might feel it. They might feel uncomfortable, and also just the situation back then, about all the rape cases going on and all the incidents going on. So I know what you're saying, and I agree to that. But from an administrative point of view, I guess just to keep people safe, I guess that was the plan that the college administration took. I mean, who knows, in future you might not have that. I mean, you don't have that today anymore. I don't think so. But as far as administrative part of it is concerned, outside with the college in that one.
Yeah, I think I hadn't looked at it that way, to be very honest. So I guess that's something also to consider. Like you said, this divide. There are different people, and to give importance to that.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, you have different people coming in from different walks of life, and from smaller cities. I mean, they might feel uncomfortable, and so just to make everybody comfortable, I mean, they do stuff like that. So I'm okay with that.
yeah, so I think with that background, yeah, now in hindsight, when you say it that way, it makes sense. But at that time, I was like, what is going on? Okay, so one of the topics you also spoke about earlier is this slut shaming that they do of this 18-year-old that you said. Um, and then you said she went and filed a complaint in the cyber cell. Uh, what's important is in when this story first broke out. So the story first broke out in Instagram itself, right? So there was no FIR, there was nothing. And I think then after this entire thing came out in Instagram, a lot of people had read it. That is when there was actually an FIR filed on it. In this connection also, this 14-year-old boy who committed suicide, right? Let's talk about using social media and using such groups to judge people, to slut shame people, and then to have like this whole judge jury attitude and tell, okay, you are guilty, you are not guilty, and ruining an entire person's life. uh, and all these false accusations that you have, right? How do you
Well,
deal with this?
yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't think a lot about it, because again, this is a group of teenagers who meet a group on Instagram. They're not exactly winning the world at the moment, are they? They're just a bunch of kids who made a group, and they could. I mean, if if it wasn't a social group, it would have been like when I was in school, it would have been a bunch of 4 or 5 people, sitting around and talking about it, right? So as far as making a group, I don't give much importance to it because um, it's a uh, it's there are a bunch of teenagers. But what I do, I'm sort of worried about is the kind of thoughts that are going in on a 14-year-old's mind today. Now, group or not, I mean, just the thought of um, shaming somebody, or thoughts about raping somebody, that's very disturbing. I don't think any of my when I was 14 years old. uh, I mean, yeah, we used to talk about girls and how we want to be with them and all that kind of stuff, but we never thought about, oh, let's just rape her. We have 5 of us. That's what is scary, and that's what we should be addressing. And again, it comes back to the whole point about education, and the whole point about this cultural clash, and about the kind of exposure that they're getting on social media, the kind of things that they have access to. I mean, at home, you can ban all the channels. I mean, when we were kids, one of the main things was if the kid wasn't studying or getting marks, the first thing the father used to do is cut the cable, right? And and that used to take care of it. But now, even if you do that, you have a phone, and then you have access to pretty much the world. And you brought up another interesting topic about pornography and how it all plays into this. Now, I think 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there was a survey done uh, in the United States, and it was an election issue in some of the counties, because there were more sort of Christian-based, conservative sort of people, and they thought, pornography was something that is causing a lot of domestic violence, something that was causing rapes and all that. So they did a survey across the country, and contrary to the beliefs, a more liberal counties, more liberal states, which allowed pornography, had less number of rape cases, less number of domestic violences as compared to these conservative, because that was an outlet for a lot of people. Now, back then, I guess pornography was mostly limited to like adult bookshops, or just the DVDs. It wasn't as mainstream as what it is today. I mean, porn is just free of cost right now. Anybody could access it. So I don't know how much it impacts, or how does it play into the Indian context today, or how it's affecting people in India. But that is something worth noting. For you can't just ban something and expect the problem to go away. It's a grassroots level. It's a value driven thing, and I want to see a society where everything everything is liberal. You can do whatever you want, but people choose to do the right things. You're given the opportunity, you're given the freedom to do whatever you want, but you pick the right thing to do, and that would be an ideal society for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Um, to come to your point about, yeah, you can have these groups and all this stuff. My problem is that so you use these groups then to accuse somebody of sexual violence or sexual assault, and then you become you are the judge and you are the jury, and you tell, yeah, this person is guilty, and then you have this whole create this whole social atmosphere where you shun this person and you spread lies about them. You have no repercussions, let's say. But this person who is affected, like this 14-year-old boy who then went and committed suicide, it's awful. So this of course is a problem, right? Like this fact that you can falsely accuse anybody, and you have this with a lot of other like other places. You have it too, where they go file false rape cases on somebody, and then it becomes very easy for somebody to file a false rape case, but this other person's life is totally destroyed. We have to talk about that aspect as well.
Well, there are two things here. One, I think, uh, people have become more sensitive to other people's opinion because of social media. I think because you put a picture of yourself on I don't know on Snapchat or Instagram or Facebook, and it's that chemical that goes in your brain when you get likes, and it's like they say that it's like smoking a cigarette, right? It gives you that kind of relief. So they're addicted to getting feedback. That's one thing. The second thing is because they have become so sensitive, they don't have a thick skin for criticism.
Mhm.
So right now, like when we were kids, I mean, I was straight away told I was a fat kid. Um, okay, so or somebody used to, if they came in and they said you're stupid, fine, you just took it on the chin, right? It develops. You got to develop a thick skin in order to survive in this world. Otherwise, I mean, words are cheap, right? You can take them the way they are, but uh, the influence of social media, the influence of even the parenting style these days. Again, I'm not a parent, but I've seen other people parent. They say anything goes, mera bacha, mera ladla, and gives everything. They provide everything because they have the means now. Again, economy. um, when we were kids, if I had to buy new sets of books or new uniform or something like that, it used to be an annual thing. When my dad used to get a bonus or something like that, that's when we used to go out and do our purchases back then. So we knew our limitations. We knew that if we needed something, then we got to work for it. We got to wait for it. It's not going to come in like right away. But kids these days, because of the economy, because of the way the people are parenting these kids, they believe that they're entitled to everything, and they believe that whatever the internet says is right, and whatever they say is right. So again, I don't give. If somebody is, and again, this is a real issue. Suicide of a 14-year-old just because of an just because of some brats online made a group and what passed judgment on him. So that's his life. They got to be. They got to. Parents have to tell their children that Instagram or any of the social media, that's not life. That's not something that you got to pay attention to. That's just a way of keeping yourself connected with your friends. That's about it. You could always take a phone and call them up or just go meet them. But making these groups, what's happening is because of this exposure to social media and exposure to the world, they think they are adults, which they're not, and they're not
Yeah.
capable of handling responsibility. So again, I wouldn't pay too much attention um, to this. I guess you got to tell your kids that that isn't what real life is. I mean, peer pressure is a big thing, I know, but it's just a group. I mean, what's the big deal?
Yeah, I can see where you're. I mean, I can see your point. Um, I'm not too sure I agree, or I don't think I agree because I have seen how it does affect people, and that is one thing. But I mean, I think it's completely okay to disagree, and it is two different points of view. My problem is also with the fact that so in the Snapchat controversy, it was this girl who was pretending to be a boy who started this whole gang rape discussion, right? And then the Delhi police let her go because it said that they said that there was nothing to legally hold, I mean, legally book her for. So my problem is there is some amount of inequality in this sense, right? Like she did, what she did is not right either. Just because we don't, so
Well,
what,
you got to give
let
credit
me,
where it's due. She used a clever way of trying to test the character, but I wouldn't have gone with the video gang rape me. But I would have. I mean, there are so many other ways you could test somebody's character, but I I don't know. I guess I'm not. I'm not. I don't know the law, and I don't know under what circumstances they let her go, and I can't make a judgment as to say that this guy had to be arrested or that guy had to be arrested. But I mean, again, what's surprising to me is why is a freaking 14-year-old talking about gang rape?
Yeah,
That's my concern at the
that's
moment.
the essence of the issue, right?
Yeah, that's the issue. I mean, why is she even? Why is that thought even in her head? And to be brutally honest, I don't know how many of these chaps can actually do the act. I mean, they're 14, 15 years old, so I don't know, but I guess in our society, just like how you have patriarchy, right? When there is a rape case or something like that, unfortunately, the girl is usually innocent until proven guilty. The boys are guilty until proven
Yeah.
guilty. So they're already proven guilty. So that's our culture. I don't know the specifics as to why the police didn't book a case against her because I haven't gone through it. But on paper, it seems like because she is a minor and a girl, and probably I bet she's probably from a good family and rich family. Let her go. I don't know.
Yeah, so I just pulled up the report. So here's what it says. Though making up fake profiles accounts to impersonation, but in this case, the girl did not make a profile with the purpose to cheat someone or do a fraud. That means there's no intention to commit a crime here, which is why they let her go. So I can completely understand that there's no law for this, right? I mean, yeah, she didn't defraud anybody. Yeah, legal. So that I can understand. But the issue here is that it is still wrong, right? It is still wrong to. I mean, what she said. You have this hoo ha and this cry about these boys speaking about the same thing this girl said. Why do we have this? What do you call it? This discrimination. She should be held just as accountable as these boys are. And my problem is also twofold because some people, there are people, and I have seen this, who now hold up her example and who say, she said it, so we are allowed to say it too. I mean, this is the problem, right? So they're like, what she says, they don't understand that what she says doesn't absolve, I mean, her creating a fake profile and her being a girl doesn't absolve the rest of the boys who said what they said.
Yeah, that is true. And again, I don't know how much importance I should give. These are kids. What I'm concerned about is why are these thoughts even in their heads, and what wrong are we doing in our society to for them? I know that 2012 the Nirbhaya rape case was really horrific, and that was like for the first time, they had like graphic details of it. So I don't know if that's like kind of influenced a lot of these people into thinking more about rape, and you're seeing that being publicized in the media a lot. Rape cases, and there are strong opinions about that. And when I was, I mean, in December when I was there in India, I think they did an encounter of an alleged rapist. They actually
Yeah.
shot him dead. So there are a lot of strong views about it, and from a girl's point of view, I guess. Um, she's within her right to probably check up on the character, but again, talking about gang rape, those are not the smartest. That was not the smartest thing to do, I don't think. But again, these are teenagers. They are on a social media platform. And then I think somebody used the Me Too movement for this. They're freaking 13, 14-year-old kids. And they're living under their parents, and they're pretty much secure. I mean, I don't know why people are giving it so much prominence. As I said, I'm more worried about why are these thoughts coming into their heads. I would try to correct that. I mean, this social media thing, it's I mean, it's a tool. I mean, there's got to be ways to regulate that. If there wasn't any social media, then we would have small gangs of. I mean, when we were in school, we had gangs. We had a bunch of 5 to 10 kids. Not only on boys. I mean, girls had their own gangs, and they used to talk amongst themselves. So it's not a social media thing. It's more of a mindset thing, and that's where I think all of us should start addressing that.
So you think, do you think that somewhere along the line the problem is that the issue is getting diverted from why is this mindset there in the first place to, oh, it's social media that's doing this? I think this. Uh,
No, no. In fact, I think and I know you're going to disagree with me, but this claptrap about the modern day feminism, that's the debate. So what
no,
happens?
I actually, funnily enough, I actually agree with you. Right. So
Yeah, what you do agree with me?
I mean, you can have an
Yeah,
exception. No,
yeah,
I kind of agree with you because for me, I think the problem is feminism has become a completely different thing than what it is, right? Feminism is is actually equal treatment of men and women, same rules for men and women. That is what feminism is about. But all of a sudden you have feminism becoming about oh, I can go and, I don't know, go out at night at 2 in the night. That's feminism, but that's not. I mean,
exactly. Exactly. So, Mani, I'm speaking to you not more than 100 miles away from me was where the first feminist movement started in the world. There's a place called Seneca, which is 100 miles from here, and it started in, I think, in early 1800s, I believe. It
mhm.
started out as a human rights movement, and it included men in the initial round of thing, or round of bills. So it got some steam and it died out within 2 years. So by 1840, I think it died down. And then there were small things here and there happening throughout the world. But the next major reform came in the 1970s. During the hippie movement in San Francisco, in California. That's when the second wave, and that's where you see, like now we have kindergartens, we have working mothers who can leave their kids and what do they call it in creacheries and stuff like that. I think that sort of concept came in the 1970s, and then it died out again because in the 80s people partied a lot and they were pretty much happy about life. So everything was forgotten about. Then the third wave or the latest feminist movement started in 2015, and I fundamentally, I mean, I'm with the 1820s movement, the 1970s movement. I could see some merit in that, but in 2015, I believe when you visited us here, in I think it was 2016, 2017
I think
timeframe when you guys.
2017 we came to New York. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you guys visited us, that was when it was at its peak, I would say.
Mhm.
And the whole premise of it was wrong to begin with. I mean, it was mostly political to make a woman president, and I must say, I mean, a lot of good people took part in it, but they were crushed. Their voices weren't heard. It was all about politics, and they wanted to push an agenda. And at the same time, um, the same movement started, coming into India as well. All the mainstream media, anything you say about a woman, some lady in some Kolkata CPM thing, they stand up and they'll start dissenting without knowing that modern day feminism doesn't apply to India at all. We have our own problems with women, as we talked about. Patriarchy is a big thing. They talk about abortion laws in India. I mean, it's been there for a long time. I
Yeah.
mean, our first woman chief minister was in 1963, when most of the black women here in America didn't have any rights to vote. We had our first chief minister. We had a woman prime minister, and we don't have a woman president yet over here. And our woman prime minister is more of a man than any man could be when she was there, when Indira Gandhi was there. So she was a pretty tough lady. So things like that, and people should understand. There are things like they talk about, again, as I said, abortion laws. Here you have a lot of teenage pregnancies over here. High schools getting pregnant. That is considerably down in India. I don't think there are a lot of cases like that in India. There's abortion due to premarital sex over here, but even the percentage of that in India is low. In India, if anything at all, if people want to get an abortion, it is mostly because of economic reasons. they can't sustain the baby. So most of the time, that's the reason why they do it. So this whole idea about um, Me Too movement and feminism, for me, it's just a commercial claptrap, and I I don't agree with any of it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that point because I feel this commercial feminism has clouded over and taken over what actual feminism is about. And like you mentioned, India has different problems. We have a different set of ideologies and different mindset to fight against compared to the West. And I think this is again where what you said about this identity clash, I think that is where it ties in. Because I think on the rural level, you're fighting a completely different set of challenges where you're trying to empower women. But the urban people are then coming in with their first world problems, I'll call it, for lack of a better word, of, oh, I should be able to go drinking at 2 in the night. I mean, does that really matter? I don't, like, personally, to me, I don't care, right?
Nah, I don't.
There are more important issues in India that we have to concentrate on when it comes to women and feminism. And I think the problem is because of this commercialization of feminism in India, these important issues are getting ignored. So, so on that,
Yeah,
I
you
completely agree with
got
you.
cut off.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that last bit got cut off.
Yeah, so I was just saying that I think the commercial aspect of feminism in India, which has been brought in mostly by, um, which is actually brought in by our celebrities, which is marketed by all these media companies or marketed even by products to sell, has taken over or hijacked, I would say, the actual cause of feminism in India. And which is why there is such a distrust of feminism in India, right? Like in India, any girl who says I'm a feminist is immediately called you're a feminazi. That is what you have become.
Yeah, I mean, and then also I mean, you shouldn't stop trying to like empower young women. You definitely have to give them that space and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. But what's happening is what I have a problem with is, as you said, the women leaders who call themselves feminist at the moment are broadly mostly political. They try to peddle their political stuff forward. There isn't any real talk about patriarchy. There isn't any real talk about changing policies and stuff like that. And oddly enough, there isn't talk about the good things that are happening in our society. I mean, just think about it. Um, Feminism, or sorry, the patriarchy 30 years ago, patriarchy 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, today, I mean, it's been on a steady decline. At least middle class families are becoming more accepting of their woman child or girl child, or more accepting of women in prominent positions and stuff like that, and they are actually promoting that. What they are not highlighting is, I know your mother worked, my mother also worked back in the 90s.
Yeah,
And back then, just think about it. My mother used to travel on a bus. She used to catch two buses to go work in a private firm for, a couple of thousand rupees back then. Just think about, there was no security back then, and they were independent. So the women of the 90s, you see prominent journalists come out. I mean, you might not agree with a lot of their views, but the fact of the matter is they were on the battlefields in Kargil. They were in
yeah,
like different places in the world trying to, as independent women. So these are the strong kind of women that need to be projected onto our society, not somebody say Me Too movement and go stand in a like a strike in a temple somewhere in Kerala. I mean, that's just stupid.
that's
Um,
just ridiculous.
yeah. So I mean, you got to try to recognize the actual Indian women who actually lived their life on their own terms. They lived their life independently, and guess what? I mean, if my dad wasn't around in the 90s or in the 2000s, my mother was fully capable of taking care of me and my brother. So that's the kind of strong sort of women need to come forward, and people need to say, okay, this is the kind of Indian woman. And the most important part of it is they didn't beg for respect. They didn't beg, give us a job because we're women. They earned it
Yeah.
because of their work. They worked harder, or if not equal, harder than men, and they made their name for themselves when society was pretty much against. I mean, at least it was different than the society that we have today. So that's what feminism in India is. That's the symbol of feminism in India, and that's what people have to bring forward.
Yeah, I think you're completely right. That is the kind of feminism we should be promoting. Only it's been hijacked by these victim card holders who say, "Arey, ye nahi hai, wo nahi hai," and who say that we are not a feminist enough country. But I feel it is absolutely not the case. And I mean, you showed so many examples, right? Like we've had women chief ministers, we've had a woman who was prime minister, we've even had a president who was a woman.
And we
Yeah.
had a remote control woman prime minister as well.
Yeah, and then I think what is also a lot of times not spoken about in this context is that compared to the rest of the world, India does have a huge percentage, or actually I think we have the highest percentage of women in STEM fields, right? Like when it comes to science, technology, and
Oh
maths,
yeah.
never gets acknowledged, never gets spoken about, because it's not convenient to
That's
speak about this.
Yeah, that's I think one of the hidden strengths within India. I remember when we were kids, when we used to take a look at board exam results or CET results, there was always a competition between, at least in Karnataka, right? Who was, girls had like 98% pass rate, and
Yeah.
men had 94 or whatever. And then what's happened is, like, again, because of patriarchy or whatever, these brilliant, intelligent girls, they come into the field, but they eventually get married, have a kid, and retire for life. But what's happening slowly right now, it's a very slow process. Is, women are, they're graduating, they're making a name for themselves, they're making a job, they're making the right decisions. When to marry, when to have a kid. What should we do, and they're making these conscious decisions so that they can contribute more, and they can move on to prominent positions. I think that's a hidden strength within India. I mean, I think if the potential, I mean, the number of people that not only in stem cells. I mean, there are, I know a lot of people in architecture or interior design, or nursing. Nursing is a big thing. I mean, you have so many nurses coming out of Kerala and all these places. Yeah, it's a hidden potential. I think our workforce could be, tomorrow, if there is a demand, our workforce could be increased by at least 25-30% because of all these engineers who are sitting at home, making babies. But that's a slow sort of process.
I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know, to be very honest, about what you said right now, because I've not worked in India. So you have a better, I think, idea there.
Yeah, no, I mean, just if you take a look around, a lot of people, what happens? This is the trend, right? So you pass out of engineering, you get a job, you work there for 2 or 3 years, then the girl gets married. Most of the time, she comes back, works for another 2 or 3 years, then they have a child, and then that's it. Then she's a housewife. Um, that needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem is also we are getting slightly off track now from the topic at hand. This, I think, feminism and India is a whole other fascinating topic in itself and by itself. But I think we've spoken about more or less everything that I can think of. And we can, I think, wrap up more or less by saying, I think, what is most important is, like you said, grassroots level change in our families and in our schools, where children are taught about mutual respect. Children are taught about what it means to respect each other, and about being equal, both men and women, and treating each other as decent human beings, right? Like that is the essence of it at the end of the day.
Yeah. And
Um,
then license for using social media.
oh
They
yeah,
have to get a mental competence test before they use social media.
Yeah, I think I think that's a very good point you made, where you made you made the comparison to kids. I think this is also something which has to be seriously considered. I mean, maybe not. I don't know if you can do it on a societal level. Maybe it has to then fall back down to parents to see that you tell, okay, no, you're not old enough. You don't get a mobile phone. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just make it a law. I mean, there can be things to be done. I mean, you maybe they say that in order for you to use a mobile phone, you got to be 18 or 21 or something, or you got to have some sort of a license code or something to enter, so that if something wrong goes on, then it flags up someplace. I don't know. There's so many privacy issues and all those things come into picture, which I'm not an expert in. So, but there needs to be some regulation in the use of how kids use social media.
Yeah, I think with that we can technically wrap this up. So at this point, I'll say thank you very much for talking to me. We
Thanks,
disagreed
Puneet.
on something, but I think we did agree also in the end on something else. So that's always good.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add?
No, nothing much. I guess I mean there are going to be incidents like this, and I would urge, I mean, any young parent who's watching right now, make sure that your kids are exposed to the right thing. Unfortunately, because of the identity crisis and because of all the technology that we have around our world, it's inevitable. I mean, these things would be coming up from time to time until everybody is aware and educated, and society reaches some sort of equilibrium. So that's about it.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot. So yeah, like Arjun said, talk about these things, make incremental changes in your family, see how you're treating your kids, boys, girls. I mean, it matters. And then I think with that we can wrap up today's podcast. Thank you very much, Arjun, for coming firstly, and for everybody who listened. If you want Arjun and me to talk about any other issues, if you have anyone else that I could talk to, please mention them in the comments below. And I'll see you next time. Bye.
Right. Bye bye.